You know I love to come with receipts here at the MeidasTouch Network. I like to come with the evidence. So when I saw Donald Trump speak at the U.S. Steel factory in Pittsburgh, which is about to be acquired, that's an important word, acquired by Nippon Steel in an acquisition, and I saw the steel workers who were all there being used as props, and a lot of them were clapping for Donald Trump, I'm thinking to myself, y'all realize that you are clapping for your own demise? Y'all realize that you are clapping for somebody who has attacked steel workers his entire life and who has always sided with foreign steel over American steel in his own projects over and over again? So let me come with the receipts. The first thing I want to show you is, by now you know that all of these MAGA Republicans are claiming that Nippon Steel is not acquiring U.S. Steel. No. Even though it's always been called an acquisition, what's really happening here is some like strategic partnership, and U.S. Steel is just accepting an investment from Nippon. That's not what's happening. Nippon Steel, a Japanese steel company, the fourth largest in the world, is acquiring U.S. Steel. And a lot of politicians and a lot of people believe that posed a national security issue to have any foreign ownership of U.S. Steel. How do I know it's an acquisition? Well, let's go to the Nippon Steel website and let's show you what they're referring to it. Nothing's changed since March 15, 2024 in terms of the deal. If you want to show me the deal, I'll look at if the deal has been revised, but the deal that I'm aware of is the one that former president blocked for national security reasons. And here's what the Nippon Steel Corporation posted about the deal. Statement about acquisition of United States Steel Corporation by Nippon Steel. In the Asia trades and in the Japanese markets, how are they referring to it? Nippon Steel says U.S. Steel acquisition would help defenses against China. And then you go and read their release. Nippon Steel said its purchase of U.S. Steel would strengthen American supply chains and economic defenses against China. Okay, that's how they're framing it, because it is an acquisition. So let's go through kind of line by line, and let me just point out how the people who were in Pittsburgh, the steel workers, were clapping for their own demise. So Donald Trump posts the following. We don't want America's future to be built with shoddy steel from Shanghai. We want it built with the strength and pride of Pittsburgh. Who would ever want to use shoddy steel from Shanghai? Oh, wait, Donald Trump. Here's an article back from October 3rd, 2016 Newsweek. How Donald Trump ditched U.S. steel workers in favor of China. Plenty of blue-collar workers believe that as president, Donald Trump would be ready to fight off U.S. trade adversaries and reinvigorate the country's manufacturing industries through his commitment to the Rust Belt. What they likely don't know is that Trump has been stiffing American steelworkers on his own construction projects for years, choosing to deprive untold millions of dollars from 4 key electoral swing states, instead directing it to China, the country whose trade practices have helped decimate the once powerful industrial center of the United States. A Newsweek investigation found that in at least 2 of Trump's last 3 construction projects, Trump opted to purchase his steel and aluminum from Chinese manufacturers rather than United States corporation based in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. In other instances, he abandoned steel altogether, instead choosing the far less expensive option of buying concrete from various companies. Okay. Of Trump's last 3 construction projects, the first to use Chinese steel was Trump International Hotel Las Vegas, which opened in 2008. The manufacturers from China is not immediately evident. The fact is hidden within a chain of various corporate entities, including holding companies registered in the British Virgin Islands. That microstate is a popular site for obscure offshore entities that exist only on legal documents, limiting the potential liability of real businesses while obscuring their true owners. According to government documents, the Chinese entity chosen by Trump to provide steel for the Las Vegas property is a holding company called Ocean Innovation Co. Ltd., formerly known as Ultra Glory International Ltd. That British Virgin Island entity in turn owns a second holding company called Ocean Innovation Materials Group Ltd., which through a complex legal arrangement indirectly currently owns Osen Innovation Materials Co. Ltd. and through it Osen Steel, Wire, and Cable Co., the operating business located in Shanghai. With such layers upon layers of corporate shells and divisions, builders like Trump can purchase their steel from less expensive Chinese suppliers without the ultimate supplier being readily apparent. But I guess Donald Trump says that would be the shoddy steel, but he would always use that in all of his business projects. Now, one of the things we also know, and let's not forget, is that Donald Trump had a Chinese bank account, which all of a sudden had a deposit in 2017 of $17.5 million. Also, it should be noted that in many years, Donald Trump had paid more money in taxes to China than he paid for his own taxes here in the United States. Trump paid nearly $200,000 in taxes in a year where he paid $750 in taxes into the United States. As we said, Trump by the numbers, $188,561 in taxes to China, $130,000 to Stormy Daniels, $750 in taxes to the United States. So back in 2020, when MeidasTouch was first founded, we created this video. We called it Quid Pro Trump, and we focused on Trump's relations with China. Here, play this clip.
The trade war with China is having negative effects on the U.S. economy.
I realized that it was going to affect us.
I don't like raising my prices.
Farmers are the ones that are taking it on the job.
It doesn't look like a big win for the United States.
No, it doesn't at all.
I like China. Am I supposed to dislike them?
John Bolton, the former national security advisor for President Trump, writes in his book, as it relates to President Trump's meetings with President Xi, Trump then stunningly turned the conversation to the coming U.S. presidential election, pleading with Xi to ensure he'd win.
There's a sense here in Beijing that another 4 years of Trump would benefit Beijing.
People say, oh, you don't like China. No, I love them.
Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the US with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers? They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. Their Live and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. Plus, get support from trained plant experts on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. I got a lemon tree from Fast Growing Trees, and it's my favorite thing in my yard. I was worried about ordering plants online, but it arrived fresh, strong, and ready to plant. Plus, now I get to just walk outside and pick my own citrus, not to mention it smells amazing every time I go out. And by the way, big yard, small yard, no yard at all, doesn't matter. Fast Growing Trees has over 6,000 plants to fit any space, from indoor plants to fruit trees to full-size privacy trees and more. Fast Growing Trees has plant experts on call, so if you're like me and don't have a green thumb, they'll help you choose the right plant and keep it thriving. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code Meidas at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code Meidas, M-E-I-D-A-S, at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code Meidas. Now is the perfect time to plant. Use Meidas to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply.
Now, it should also be noted that on Friday, Donald Trump made a post claiming that he was helping China, and that's why he removed the tariffs from 145% against China to 30% against China. He said he needed to help them out. Quid pro Trump? Or does he not want to be called the taco? Trump always chickens out. This is what Trump posted. He said, 2 weeks ago, China was in grave economic danger. The very high tariffs I set made it virtually impossible for China to trade into the United States marketplace, which is by far #1 in the world. We went in effect cold turkey with China, and it was devastating for them. Many factories closed, and there was, to put it mildly, civil unrest. I saw what was happening and didn't like it for them, not for us. I made a fast deal with China in order to save them from what I thought was going to be a very bad situation, and I didn't want to see that happen. Because of this situation, Because of this deal, everything quickly stabilized and China got back to business as usual. Everybody was happy. That is good news. The bad news is that China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with us. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, and China is just obviously just laughing at a statement like that as Donald Trump does weirdo adult fiction. I think it's important that we understand what the United States Steelworkers Union is saying as well about all of these statements coming out from Donald Trump and MAGA leaders. There's a lot of confusion right now, and the United States Steelworkers don't even know what the deal is. Because if the deal was the 2024 deal, which is the only deal that we're aware of at the MeidasTouch network of Nippon acquiring U.S. Steel, that's an acquisition, and there could be serious issues about Nippon phasing out the factory workers who belong to the union, going to non-union workers, or trying to consolidate with other manufacturing that they have and eventually shut down this facility. Nippon claims it's never going to do that. Nippon says it's going to be a good steward of U.S. Steel. But remember, Donald Trump during the campaign, MAGA Republicans during the campaign, and former President Biden, I think if there was one area of agreement, they believe that a foreign ownership of U.S. Steel could pose a national threat, and they said they were going to oppose it on that and other reasons. Here's what the United States Steelworkers had to say. Let's pull it up. They said, following uncertainty on the shop floors about recent public statements regarding a, quote, planned partnership between Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel, we want to provide some clarity on what is known and, more importantly, what remains unknown to everyone who isn't involved in kind of these closed door discussions in which the United States Steelworkers Union has not been included. Over the last several days, we've received calls and messages from many of our members and local union leaders who do not support the merger, asking what the rumored partnership means. At this time, we cannot say whether the planned partnership described in Friday's message on Truth Social or news reports since then represents any meaningful change from the merger proposed in 2023, under which Nippon Steel would acquire the U.S. Steel and make it a wholly owned subsidiary. Throughout recent months, as the public conversation has turned to Nippon investing in U.S. Steel or partnering with U.S. Steel, Nippon has maintained consistently that it would only invest in U.S. Steel's facility if it owned the company outright. We've seen nothing in the reporting over the past few days suggesting that Nippon has walked back from this position of ownership, of acquisition. We also cannot confirm how much of the publicly claimed $14 billion in proposed investment would be directed to our union-represented plants, or how much of that sum would go toward genuinely new capital improvements as opposed to routine repair and maintenance. In other words, is this promised $14 billion by Nippon Steel just $14 billion in operating costs that they would need to spend anyway? Or is this $14 billion in new money that's actually going to help the workers? It sounds like it's just going to be operating costs, and that's why nobody wants to really discuss what it is. And at least just say what it is. Just let people know so they can make an informed decision here and not be conned. It goes on to say, further, Nippon has not disputed reports that suggest up to $4 billion of the $14 billion would be earmarked for greenfield operations, and our members already know that our plants are not greenfields, and generally that means non-union. In other words, the $14 billion would be invested in non-union shops and non-union labor to try to break the steel workers unions. So all those people who I saw clapping in the background, I'm sure many of you belong to the union. Like, they're coming for you. Like, you're probably going to lose your job, but I guess keep clapping. I don't know. It goes on to say, and no details have been provided about how or when this money would be spent over the next 14 months. A claim made in Friday's Truth Social message, a time frame that aligns closely with the expiration of the basic labor agreement in 15 months. Our core concerns about Nippon Steel, a foreign-owned corporation with a documented history of violating U.S. trade laws, remain as strong and valid today as ever. And that is so whether U.S. Steel and Nippon adhere to the same deal that they have pursued since December 2023, or whether they tweak the terms to satisfy concerns in Washington. We will continue to demand transparency, fairness, and respect for the rights of our members and enforce our basic labor agreement. As always, your solidarity is our greatest strength. You see, the MAGAs keep calling it partnership. This was Trump's post that was being referred to there. I'm proud to announce that after much consideration and negotiation, U.S. Steel will remain in America and keep its headquarters in the great city of Pittsburgh. For many years, the name United States Steel was synonymous with greatness, and now it will be again. This will be a planned partnership between United States Steel and Nippon Steel, which will create at least 70,000 jobs and add $14 billion to the U.S. economy. The bulk of that investment will occur in the next 14 months. This is the largest investment in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. My tariff policies will ensure that steel will once again be forever made in America. From Pennsylvania to Arkansas and from Minnesota to Indiana, American made is back. I will see you all at the U.S. Steel. Pittsburgh on Friday, May 30th for a big rally. Congratulations to all. And again, where does that 70,000 job numbers come from? It's a made up number. This is not going to generate 70,000 jobs. It's going to be a net loss of jobs. And if you go look at the former Trump administration, the former first term, Trump's tariffs on steel actually caused a lot of manufacturers to lose jobs. He did not bring jobs back at all. He didn't. And there's not going to be 70,000 jobs. Like, that's just something entirely made up. So now let me show you this, and I'll just show you kind of the flip-flops here that's taken place. So this is now Senator Dave McCormick of Pennsylvania, who recently won the election. But here's what he said back on January 31st, 2024, that he would be, and he's the senator from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He said, we need to have domestic steel owned by American companies, and that allowing Nippon to acquire it would be very bad for our national security. So he said that January 31, 2024. Here, play this clip.
Because of the national security implications. So we need to have a domestic steel industry. It's one of those industries that are most critical to our national security. And so we learned during COVID, when our pharmaceuticals were dependent on the outside world, semiconductors, that we need to have critical industries like steel that are made here at home.
So the government should or should not block Nippon Steel taking U.S. steel?
I said it should block. The government should block it on national security grounds.
All right, now here he is this past week saying the exact opposite. So you can see for yourself. Play this clip.
We are told time and time again by all the financial analysts and pundits that this has implications for pretty much all of America. But if you're not somebody who's an investor or shareholder or a worker in the industry, can you lay out for us why we should care?
Yeah, well, the first thing is we have to be a place that welcomes foreign investment. So foreign direct investment in the United States, in Pennsylvania alone, creates this $20 billion. It creates 330,000 jobs. So having companies come to the United States and invest is a key part of our growing economy. And in this case, the reason this is so important is because our domestic steel industry is essentially almost gone out of business. And this inflow of new capital is going to help U.S. Steel be cutting edge, have all the newest technology. And it's going to help our national security because we need a healthy domestic steel industry in our country. And we almost lost it. This will be great for shipbuilding. This will be great for lots of things that are critical to industrial manufacturing. And as I said, it's a great driver for economic growth and great jobs.
And finally, I could show you other clips like this, but here's Laura Ingraham just trying to, and she asked a pretty basic question here, like, have we seen the terms of this deal? What are the terms? Is this an acquisition? Is this an investment? What's going on here? And watch these MAGA Republicans squirm on a softball question. Here, play this clip.
Well, the president fights for American workers first. The president fights for American companies first. This was quite a rally in Pittsburgh. We haven't seen a Trump rally of this sort in a long while. Here to break it all down, Alex Marlow, Breitbart editor-in-chief, host of the Alex Marlow Show. Alex, this is being described as a partnership, this deal between Nippon and U.S. Steel, but then it's described as an acquisition on the U.S. Steel website, and then it's described as a partnership, and President Trump said he will be watching over things. as things proceed, as this deal goes forward. Have you seen any of the terms of this deal thus far? Like, who owns the majority stake in this company?
Laura, this is exactly where I was hoping you would start, because I'm reading all these different things. I'm trying to get deal details, and I'm hearing it's an investment. Okay, that sounds terrific. And I hear it's a partnership. I'm thinking, wait a minute. And then you think about it, U.S. Steel has been, Nippon Steel has had its eye on U.S. Steel, trying to buy it for 18 months. And we cannot have U.S. Steel owned by a foreign company. Even a great country like Japan should not be owning any part of U.S. major manufacturing. I mean, that is a major national security risk. And I've not seen the deal details. The rally was sensational. I completely trust Donald Trump, and I trust the current Japanese government to do something good. But we have to insulate ourselves, Laura, in case we have a bad president one day. So any deal, when we see these terms, it needs to be Pete Buttigieg proof. It needs to be Kamala Harris proof. The amount of surveillance we're going to have to do, the amount of censoring and surveying that we're going to have to do to make sure that Japan can't use U.S. Steel to leverage us in a dispute, it's going to be a lot. I trust Trump. I don't trust everyone else on this.
Well, and I don't know if he was fully informed about the terms of the deal. We just don't know. But if anyone would protect American workers and American industry, it would be Donald Trump. So that's obviously on the side of being in favor of this.
So here's the thing, and I'm not approaching this from a partisan way. I'm not approaching this as, oh, Democrats and Republicans. Democrats and Republicans on a bipartisan basis didn't support this acquisition. Well, now there seems to be support for this acquisition by the MAGA Republicans, at least. And people are talking about a deal. And we've seen before with Donald Trump over and over again, he does fake deals. And so the question is, what the hell is really going on? And there should be a modicum of transparency here. And then you go back and you see Trump's history with steel in his own buildings. And he's saying that nobody wants shoddy Chinese steel. But that means all of your buildings then are shoddy Chinese, or a lot of them are shoddy Chinese steel buildings. It doesn't make sense because he's lying. And this should raise a lot of, if they're lying about that, if they're not showing you the deal and he's just going up and giving these, these speeches, I'm talking to the steelworkers there who were clapping for him. Like literally, how many times can you be fooled by this guy? Like how many times? He's going to forever? Like he can inflict any pain on you and your family. Actually, he can destroy your union, but then you'll get angry at a transgender volleyball player. Like that makes sense to you? Anyway, hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.